Welcome to another edition of Observing Consciousness. Today we're here with a dear friend of ours, Esperanza. We're going to be talking Day of the Dead. I think there's a lot of misconception that goes into the holiday, what it's about, what it represents. I know for myself personally, when I first heard of Day of the Dead, I was pretty young, and it seemed like a Halloween holiday to me. I didn't know what the association was. I was very, I was pretty blind to a lot of the different like spiritualities, different beliefs and stuff like that. I just had kind of my way of thinking. So today I think this is probably more for my benefit than anybody else's, because I'm the one that probably knows the least about Day of the Dead. So I have lots of questions, but that's what today is going to be about, is Day of the Dead and getting into that holiday and the celebration of life. And I thought it was fascinating that we coincided it with like the Halloween month. So.
And Esperanza is going to show us how to create an altar so that all of our friends out there watching or listening can maybe create their own altar if they feel so called to do so. Yes, and I believe Alethea is going to pull a card for us today.
Let's do some tarot.
Crow tarot.
Let's see how the Crow Tarot treats us today.
Love that Crow Tarot.
Yeah.
Last week when Godfrey was on, she pulled a card and she's like, I'm not sure if I resonate with that card. And then she reshuffled it and pulled the card.
Same
again.
card.
Same card.
It was like, no, it was like, no, you're getting that card.
That's happened to me.
Oh yeah, it happens quite, yeah. It's
You think that's
happened.
going away?
Yeah.
Like, no, you need to know.
It's not going
Uh-huh,
away.
uh-huh.
That's not going away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I got the star.
Ooh.
In the Crow Tarot, it's saying wishes, happiness, astronomy, and optimism. The air element. Bathing in the crystal clear night sky, the crow allows the water to wash over her wings and cleanse away the negativity of the past. On a branch, a songbird serenades the crow and harkens a time of newfound optimism. The star card brings the gift of hope and a message that any problematic time in your life will soon be over, and the place you find yourself will be of love and stability. You will feel a profound transformation, one that connects spiritually, and as a result can lead to a lifetime change. Well, maybe that was just for me.
I think that's definitely for all of us.
You're the one pulling it, and it's we thought this is a group tarot. No.
Yeah.
So Esperanza, tell us a little bit about Day of the Dead. What got you into this? What these different trinkets and these different medallions, what they represent to you, and how we get into this.
Well, it started, my sister had passed away, and we had a rough relationship, and years passed, and she started visiting me in my dreams a lot. And what I was seeing, and I talked to my cousin who's a dream interpreter, she does dream interpretation, and she's like, your sister really needs your help. She said, you love Day of the Dead. Well, I love the art. I didn't really know anything about Day of the Dead. And so she said, you need to honor your sister. She's asking you for help. So that's where my journey began. And
what did your sister need help with, if you don't mind me asking?
Crossing.
Okay.
You know.
She was kind of stuck where she was at.
Yes.
How long had she been dead when this came to you and you started seeing her in your dreams and stuff like that?
She passed away in 1998, and it was like 2006.
Okay, so she's been stuck where she was at for, in our time, the way we perceive time, for a while. Who knows how it's perceived wherever she's at?
Yeah,
right.
Wherever she's at, she was stuck and needed help. And, okay, so yeah, tell us some more.
And the dreams themselves were just amazing. Anyhow,
hold on, let's tell me about the dream.
Okay, so one dream was I was taken. Now I don't remember everything about the dream, but I was taken to a room. I mean, there was a door, and she was sitting in a chair alone in this blank room, and I was told she needs your help. And I went to her, and she was bald, and I saw things moving in her head, and I popped it, and a big worm came out. And I was covering it like, oh, I don't want to freak her out. And then suddenly I popped into a house. It felt like it was like in the marshes in, Louisiana. And this elderly man who could barely walk, he was so old, he was like walking through the house with me and handing me things for my journey.
Wow.
And then I realized, oh, my sister needs this too, my older sister. So in my dream, I called her and I took her to that man, and the man did the same thing for her. So that's all I remember from that dream. The other one was
we would call that a helper spirit. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
The other dream was she was moving into my house, and I was showing her the basement, and I said, but just so you know, the girl who used to live here killed herself. And she looked at me, she goes, I'm okay with that. And she moved into my basement. And, you know, just so it was...
So the relationship was not a great relationship, is that what you said before? And so you moved your sister into your basement, which is at the very bottom of anything in life for you, right? It's like you put your sister at the bottom of life. You're like, yeah, I'll let you
There you
move,
go.
I'll
You
let
can
you
move in
move in
there.
because you're my sister, but this is where I'm putting you.
Right.
Interesting.
So when I started the journey, I started looking into it. And do you remember tribe.net?
No.
Anybody? No, it's out there. It was a social media, and I belonged to a Day of the Dead group, and it was the people in Tucson, Arizona, and they invited me to come out and be a part of that event. And so in 2007 was the first time I went.
Was that fairly like near the beginning of when they started doing that? Because I've heard
It's crazy.
it's changed.
100,000
too. It's
people.
been- yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, that's why I quit going. It's a lot.
yeah.
But, so my friend, I had a friend that went with me, and we both worked on a friend does, but it was one that you carry. This one wasn't one that you just set up. So you're carrying it in the procession. This procession is the largest in the US. It's just become an amazing event. And anybody can join in, it doesn't cost any money. And so we joined the procession, we were a part of it, and I was so inspired by everything and all the ideas and all the people I met and just everything I saw that I was like, okay, this is...
So let me ask you this. What does Day of the Dead represent? Like, what is it about? What's like kind of cutting to the chase? Because right now I'm not really like, I know what it's about because I've done a little bit of research, but at this point I have no idea. Like, what are we talking about? What is this?
Well, Day of the Dead, you're celebrating the life. You're celebrating the life of the person. You're remembering all the good memories. It's not about mourning. It's not about, you know, remembering how they died or anything like that. It's pretty much, you're celebrating, you're putting all their favorite things on the altar. This altar is for my dog who passed away last year. And she loved apples. There's an apple here. I could not eat an apple. I had to go hide to eat an apple.
Yeah.
And with the ball that I have there, she was an expert at catching the ball. I'd play handball and she'd catch it, you know, so we had a lot of fun. And this toy, of course, you know, they're toys. That was her toy. And what this represents here is, you know, you're offering them food and water and their favorite foods, which this can be as, like, what do you call it, as festive, as huge as you want it to be, or it could be as simple as you want it to be. There's no wrong. It's
So is this something that you would set up in your house and you'd leave out for a period of time? Does this always
Yes.
stay out? And do you have, so this is for your dog.
This is for my dog. I'm honoring my dog. And the whole premise is you get to talk about, you know, all the fun memories and you're remembering fondly. And that's what helps you heal, helps you get through it. And when I did the All Souls procession and I did it for my sister, I also did an event here in Vegas, it was all new, Day of the Dead. And people just thought I was weird. They thought I was gothic. And I'm like, no, I have a lot to teach you. So I lost my train of thought.
Well, we were talking about the altar where it was, so how many, that was actually one of the questions I had was, so do you have multiple altars at your house at one time? Or
You could have an altar that's honoring, you know, it could be a plane crash that you're doing this for. You could do pandemic, you can do Maui, you know, it would just represent your altar of who and what you're honoring.
That loved one you want to honor or whatever. The timing wise, what makes the time of November 1st the special time of honoring?
That's
would you
because
say?
the Catholic
Is there-
Church.
There's certain holidays that
Oh.
it runs. So there's certain dates that this gets celebrated. It's not just as you need to celebrate.
Well, it's a
yourself.
very ancient.
All Saints Day, right?
It's a very ancient holiday.
Okay.
Like, from what I hear, I'm not an expert at this, but it's like 3,000 years old. The
Okay.
Aztecs, it was an indigenous holiday. And
when's it run from? It starts when?
well, when it was celebrated indigenously, it was like a whole month. It was a season. It wasn't just a day. And so when the Catholic Church came in, tried to do away with it, they couldn't. So things got transformed and the days got set as All Souls and All Saints.
Okay.
And one day they celebrate the little angels and the next day they celebrate the adults.
Okay.
So you can be traditional if you want. I'm not traditional because I do what works for me. And when I shared this, I used to set up altars at the school where I used to work. And I involved the kids, and I also involved them with what happens at the All Souls procession. What I had set up before is this was for the kids. And as you can see, they get to write a message for anyone who inspired them in life.
Oh, I love that.
And the messages, I made up these little papers for them to write their messages. They put them in a box. And then at first we did a little ceremony at the school where I burned all the messages. But then when I started going to Tucson, then I took pictures of the journey of the messages. And so they all got to see, how everything got.
That sounds incredibly healing for a child, especially.
Oh, yeah.
As a way to honor somebody that has crossed over, for them to, help them process something like that. Yeah.
So how did this end up? We started out with talking about your sister and the altar that you made for your sister, and how did that help you process what was going on, and how did that help your sister with what she was going through?
Well, okay, so back to that. When I did another event where I was in charge of everything, the decor and everything, I was sitting getting my makeup done, and a guy that I'd never seen before came up to me and said, "Your sister wants you to know that she appreciates everything you've done for her. And she also wants to tell you not to work so hard anymore." And I just kind of stood there like, okay, and I saw him later and I said, "Thank you for the message." And he looked at me like he didn't know what I was
What are
talking
you talking
about.
about? He was channeling.
And that night, there was a guy dressed in traditional Mexican, like Day of the Dead, and he was wearing a wig and a mask. Yeah, because his face wasn't painted. And I danced, because we're all dancing, and I danced with him. And I was like, I kept asking him, "Who are you?" And he wouldn't tell me who he was or anything. He never took the makeup off. He never took anything off. He never told me who he was. And that night, I'm like, who did I dance with that night? It was such a trip.
Wow. It
Yeah.
sounds like through the dream, you were helping your sister, but also she was helping you to find this
And it
art
brought us
form,
closer
'cause
together.
I feel like this is a healing art form, creating these altars,
Big time.
which I really want you to go into telling us more specifically about creating an altar and ideas about what to place on the altar.
Well, the arch represents the passage between life and death. So every altar has some form of, of arch. It could be made of anything you want, personalize it. This arch I made from some branches that fell in my backyard. The tree just happened to have thorns.
And you put some flowers in the arch. You got a picture of Lyra.
Lyra.
That was the name of your doggie.
And my little dog thing up here. Okay. Now the butterflies, they represent the souls of the dead. And in Mexico, when the monarchs return, they return around the time of Day of the Dead. And so as you're seeing the celebrations, you're seeing the monarchs coming in. and they see them as these are the souls
Wow.
of the dead, and so they are
That's
part of the symbols.
It's kind of interesting because monarchs, don't they only live for like 48 hours or something?
I don't know.
Like crazy over
Really?
don't
That's
go
why they're
real
so good at
much.
dying. That's why they're so representative of it. They're like,
But
"Yeah, we
it's
do it all
like,
the time."
poof, I'm here real quick.
Wow,
Yeah.
that would make a lot of
And
Might have to Google that.
this represents
Fact check.
this represents the element of air, the flags, and
okay.
how fragile life is. The sugar skull, which I made this one.
Cool.
Yeah, and I usually like to facilitate, get together.
A sugar skull, like actually made of sugar?
Yes.
Okay. And yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
And what they do with the sugar skulls, they represent the person, and that goes back to the Aztec tradition. Normally you'd have like the person's name on there or something.
The Aztecs didn't realize sugar was the root of
Well, it
all
wasn't,
evil.
but it wasn't. They didn't do it from sugar. It was something else, and I'm not an expert at that, so I can't even tell you.
So modern industrialism is what did this. It's like, oh no, use sugar. It's the best thing ever. 8 times more addictive than cocaine.
So the sugar skulls are placed on the grave sites, and they just slowly, just disintegrate, and they're there for the bees and the ants, and that's how they just put them on the grave sites.
I like it.
And the copal, which is what I'm burning here, which is, where's my, I'm always losing things.
Oh, that's a nice piece of copal.
Right?
On top of a charcoal.
Whoops.
Just a hard
There.
piece of copal.
Okay, the copal is tree resin
Mhm.
that's traditionally burned to send the prayers and to keep the space, keep away the negativity. The salt is also on the altar to keep away the bad spirits, because this is a time that the veil between the worlds is the thinnest. So, and the water and the food represent, I'm here and I've got stuff for you, and I'm looking forward to spending time with you, And I would probably sit here and eat the apple and think about her. And
So is this something that you'd meditate in front of this, or is it just when you're passing by?
you can
just
drink,
fun
you can smoke, you can do
memories?
whatever. There's also people, like for example, my dad, I put a bottle of tequila on his, and I took shots,
So there's no really wrong way to do this. It's just
No.
intent. The intent is to memorialize somebody, remember them fondly, spend some more time thinking about them so they don't disappear from your memories.
Exactly, what is remembered never dies. And I didn't set up any tablecloths on this altar because I want people to know that it's not about the table. Has
So
nothing to do
normally
with
there
the
would be a
table.
tablecloth down? Is that like part
Normally,
of the tradition?
you can go seriously fancy tablecloth. Traditionally, you do 7 layers.
Oh,
And
wow.
the highest layers are for the the person. And there's a lot of things that you can do, and traditionally, or you can just adopt what works for you. And what I did with the kids is, yes, these are traditions, Mexican traditions, but it doesn't mean that we can't make them our own. And that's how I worked with the children. And there was one kid in particular who the classes, they used to go and, bring the kids to the ofrenda. And then I talked to the kids about the ofrenda. And one little boy, he was just really missing his grandpa. And he just kept saying, my grandpa loved blue roses. He loved blue roses. And I was like, all right. And so, when it was time to take everything down, on the altar there was a blue rose.
Oh my goodness. I never tire of hearing these kind of stories.
I know.
Like,
I have all kinds.
I act
yeah.
like wow, but it's like it feels like that every single
Yeah.
time I hear one of these magical mystical
Yeah, and
stories.
I pulled him out of class and said, here you go.
That is so beautiful. That is the magic that is all around us.
There's always a story.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it helped you bring closure to your sister passing? It helped you bring you closer to your sister? Do you feel like it helped you heal the relationship?
It did big time because it was funny because all of a sudden I started craving Coke and Doritos, and I don't drink Coke, you know, and I don't crave Doritos ever, you know, and I was like, Coke. I kept hearing Coke and Doritos, and I went, oh, that was her thing. She loved Coke and Doritos, so I went and I bought Coke and Doritos, and I put them on the altar, and then I shared, you know, I drank and gave it to the earth, and you know, it was like they are there.
We are connected.
Yeah.
We really are. That's really incredible that you were tuned in to your feelings and your senses. The senses are really important when you're tuning into spirit helpers or ancestors, paying attention to what senses are calling you or coming up for you.
So are there places that like where you can buy different like trinkets and things like that to help along the way, or is this all stuff that you make at home? I mean, I see some of this is very personalized, but like the sugar skull, is that something you go online and buy something like that, or is that just
You
something
can, but for me, I like to make everything because it makes it more personal.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, like this, if somebody else made it for me, I wouldn't feel
Connected.
So you like to do the arts and crafts and those parts yourself. You like to put those together yourself.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm sort of artsy.
Well, I guess if there's no wrong way to do it, and you can find
Right.
this stuff online, then buy it online if you don't want to do that.
And this is just-
that's part of the process, I guess.
2 vases I got at Goodwill, and I filled them with rocks, and then I got the, you know, the branches and just kind of wrapped them and just stuck things in there. It's, you know, it doesn't take a lot of effort, but when you do it yourself, then you're going through the journey. I've done it for people where they didn't get anything out of it, and then they did it, and then they told me, wow, yes.
Mhm.
So it's just something that you facilitate for them, which I like to do.
So if somebody wanted to, do you actually do that for people? Do you facilitate those types of things? Like on the side, do you do something like that?
I do.
You do? So how would somebody get a hold of you if they wanted to have you help them with something like that?
Well, it's usually my friends, but I can definitely.
We can put up your email or
Okay, well, if anybody's
whatever way to
interested in
contact
getting-
you
yeah.
on the page. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll put up an email address for Esperanza if anybody's interested in getting hold of her.
Because I do, you know, I hold the space for them,
Yes.
and
It's a
and it's a
healing-
very difficult thing to go through,
Mhm.
very personal. So
Yeah, it's a healing art form for sure, and one that I don't feel is seen enough in our society, where you can have somebody to look to maybe guide you through, you know, a vehicle, a way to grieve, or a way to process your emotions, or a way to connect with your loved ones. And I think more of that would be beautiful, because we really do have a lot of issues in this society about dealing with death, I think.
We don't
and
talk
death.
about it.
Yeah, we suppress
And
it.
a lot of times, you know, this kind of thing is like made for a ceremony when we send them off as a memorial, and then it's over, you know, and it's
Good
not like a
point.
recurring thing that people think of to do, you know.
That's a
Yeah.
great point.
and another thing that I learned, you know, from Tucson, Arizona, because they don't follow traditions either. Theirs is more like Burning Man meets Day of the Dead.
Mhm.
And what people do there that I thought was really cool is they also, if they're giving up a habit that's, you know, that has controlled your life, you're saying goodbye to that. And you can create an altar for that and say goodbye to it.
That's
That's
You know?
great.
important.
Yeah.
Like a cord cutting.
Yes.
Yeah,
thing, yeah.
I mean, when I quit drinking, I had serious grief, and I cried. Like, I had visions of giving away, like having the death of a different part of me, and it was like a major grieving, you know. So
Wow.
I could definitely see
Gr-
that.
Grieving the part of you that gave up alcohol. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I had like a vision between sleep and awake, and it was like my higher self and more evolved version of me was hugging the younger, like, party girl version of me and telling her goodbye.
Wow.
And I woke up just floodgates sobbing, and I knew it was over.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, so like I could see that.
Yeah, you know, we were talking, you guys started talking about the people being afraid of death, and I thought it was really interesting. I've done DMT a few times. I've never really broken through on DMT. Ayahuasca is where I've gotten a lot of my experience with psychedelics and mushrooms. But with DMT, even when I have a vape that I've used, And when I don't, I don't break through, so I still go to this crazy like environment. Something I'm somewhere else. Like I'm totally disconnected from my body. I can't feel it at all. Like I definitely could move if I needed to, but like as far as feeling yourself, it's like your awareness is just completely out of your body. And they've been doing some studies. I think the studies were coming out of Minnesota, but they're dosing people with DMT with an IV. So when you smoke DMT, it's like a 12-minute, maybe 15 minutes at the very most. You come out of it, it's like coming out of a dream state. You're kind of hazy. You don't really remember much. But they're having researchers that are going in and they're staying in for like an hour at a time, and they're reporting the same interactions with the same types of, they're giving the same descriptions of like mechanical elves and these different things that they work with and they talk with and get information from. And it's like death. Death is such a fascinating subject because I don't think any of us are really that comfortable with it unless you've like seen a psychedelic experience and you go, oh, there's like, this is just like a cycle of something that's going on. We're going through life, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And like, this is really cool. But when we leave here, it's like, there's another experience waiting. It's not all like, we don't look back at this and go, oh, I'm so sad to be gone. You're just like, oh, that was a fucking amazing experience. Like, I think it's, then you look back at yourself and whether it's good or bad, whatever. But I think the whole thing is like, you're like, mother, like, if this is a simulation, you guys, if this is a simulation, when you wake up and you come out of this thing and like, you're only in there for 10 days, and you're like, Jesus Christ, that felt like it was so real. I was in there for 86 years. You know what I mean? It was like, that was wild. Yeah, it is.
And it's a way to create that relationship with that, which we really, in our base culture sort of lack, creating that intimate relationship with.
When I do ayahuasca, so I've done it 26 times, and each time is different, but each time comes with purges, and the purges are always different. But what I started noticing is I saw a consistent pattern where I balled up on my hands and my knees, basically on my elbows and my knees, with my, like turtled up. And I would just sit in this position, and that was like the position where I was trying to get my stomach to just relax and be comfortable. And I couldn't, it's so hard sometimes when you're working through the purge process. And I started to realize, like, the purge, I got myself in the fetal position. And I was like, as I would finally get myself to purge, I was coming out of this fetal position. And as soon as the purge would happen, whatever it was, if it was, back end, if you throw it up, whatever it was, when it was done, all this, you feel better, like, instantly. It's so fast you feel better. And I started viewing the purge as basically death. Like if you hold on for dear life, if you have a really hard time purging because you're not surrendering to the experience, that's how you would be if you were going to die. If you were like in a car accident, or if you were like had cancer or whatever, and you were actually dying, you were going to resist that process because you're so attached to this. And I realized different times that some purges are still hard. It doesn't matter how many times you've done it. Some are just hard to get out. But as you surrender to what's happening, the purges come out so much easier. And it's like, it's the death process in a weird way, I think. Like because ayahuasca is, it's DMT, it's you're going into some other realm. And it's like, I think that might be what it is. Like you're maybe just like right on death's doorstep, and you get to take a look around and see how beautiful it is. And all these things are here to help and give you information.
And you can do it just by altering your consciousness through drumming, dancing, all sorts of different ways.
Well, Dana does shamanic journey, and she's quite a way into getting herself certified, I believe. And like, there's a lot to shamanic journey. It doesn't just have to be through DMT. It's breath work is there. DMT is produced endogenously in our liver, our lungs, our pineal glands.
Good point.
You can charge through breathing techniques, you can charge the DMT into your brain and force like a short session where you just kind of see some things and get an idea. But yeah.
I'm really feeling the energy of this altar today. Thank you, Esperanza. I think a lot, and part of the reason we wanted to do this and share this today, your talent and your art, was to share this with our friends and our community and our family, talk more about this kind of way of having relations with even yourself, your own death. I feel like your own facing of your own death process, and teaching our children how they can have a relationship with us after we do cross over, which is I haven't gotten that from any of my parents or my parents before that. It was lost along the way.
Well, yeah, I wasn't taught this, and when I just dived in, I used to, my name was Espy. Okay, I didn't want to be Hispanic.
Oh.
And people didn't know I was Hispanic unless I told them. And so when I dove into this, I'm like, oh, I'm Hispanic. you know, and I'm Esperanza.
Wow.
So I took back my culture, I took back my name, and
how powerful.
yes, that was big for me.
So through this practice, it became empowering for you, your culture, your ancestors, the whole enchilada.
The whole taco.
And enchilada. A lot of it, please.
No sour cream.
I had a really interesting vision the other day, just to mention, on one of my shamanic journeys to the upper world, which I completely did not expect. And it's really interesting that we're doing this on the show today, because I was seeing myself as an old lady, turning into that old lady and being on my deathbed and seeing my son having to say goodbye to me. And I was like, I didn't want to leave him because I didn't want him to be alone. But then I saw his family walk in that he had created for himself, his wife and I was like, and I didn't expect to, like, you don't know, you don't really go in expecting anything. Maybe you set an intention sometimes on the journey. I hadn't really set a specific intention for this particular journey. I just let go and went with it, because I didn't really expect to be taking the journey this evening. It's just the time opened up for me too, so I jumped into it. And wow, and it threw me off for a minute. I was like, why am I seeing this? And what is the purpose of me seeing this? And I didn't expect to see this. And the whole,
What were you seeing?
I was seeing myself as an old lady and getting ready to cross over and pass away and leave my son. And there was a fear there. And I think in some way it helped me to face it and relieve the fear. So I feel like also creating an altar like this, even for myself, my future self, and showing my son how to do this.
There you go.
And starting to talk about those things now, because also you never know. Like I'll be lucky to make it to an old lady like of 100 and maybe crossing over peacefully, but you just never know.
Well, it's like, I don't know, I believe in reincarnation, so I think that we cycle a lot of times and do this lots of times.
Same.
And I don't, I think that, like, the idea of leaving everybody, like, I'd miss you guys like crazy, I think.
Right.
But it's like, at the same time,
But would we?
are you still, I said I'd miss you guys, I think. But are these emotions that we feel here?
These are
I think they strip away, and it's like that feeling of missing. It's just it's love and light, and it's just, it's that, like, that whatever that journey is. But yeah, it's like I've had an interesting, because I lost my dad when I was 8 years old, and I developed some kind of abandonment issue that came out of that, not understanding, and I never had a place to process it, so I never really understood it. And it's like having a base belief in reincarnation. It's like I didn't really get to know him that well in this life. I was 8 years old. He's like one of my favorite people ever, the way that I remembered it. But it's like, he wasn't there that much. And then, now I'm 47. So it's like, it's been so long ago for me. It's like, I still have a few memories that linger there, but it's like, I'm going to connect with him somewhere else, some other way, some, I mean, who knows?
But this gives you an anchor to connect now if you want, it seems like, to connect whenever you feel like you need to make that connection.
And you know what? You have to want to do it, because I have, like, pushed it on people. And when, a friend of mine, her boyfriend was in a tragic accident. And I took her to the All Souls procession, and she was just very despondent. And so I was doing everything for her. And then we went, and she didn't really get anything out of it.
People have to do it for
But
themselves.
the following, she contacted me a couple of years later and said, I'm ready to do this. And then when she did it, and she did all the stuff herself, then she told me, actually what she said was, people think you're so weird, but now I get you. Now I get it. Now I understand. And I'm good.
Well, we all need a way to process grief, whatever that is, and however it helps us. If it's cord cutting, whatever, you're getting rid of an addiction, or somebody else's past, whatever it is. I mean, this is just another tool to help with the facilitation of grieving and getting the most important thing is you get it out, right? That was the thing that I didn't do when I was a child, is I didn't know to get it out. I didn't know to cry. It's like when I started doing psychedelics and I started realizing all this stuff, I spent lots of time just crying and crying, getting all this leftover energy that's stuck inside of me that I didn't understand. It was just these releases. because it's like you kind of recognize as you go along, but your body, the energy that's inside of it, your body just holds on to that stuff until you let it out. And it's, so that's its whole process, and this helps avoid those energies getting stuck inside of there, because it's a way for you to express the grief and work through it.
Not only that, it does provide that connection with whoever you're wanting to connect with. As she's saying, she wants Doritos and Coke. That's not her.
That's not me.
So it also does create a connection
Very real portal
to that beloved.
Yeah. Well, energy's real.
A
Energy,
portal, exactly.
energy works between. I think.
And your intention.
Energy's doesn't live or doesn't die. You know, it is, and it never goes anywhere. So it's like the energy. You know, we can communicate through whatever these veils are, through whatever these dimensions are, through energy. Like that's language is in there. There's emotion in energy. Like everything can be transmitted and translated. You know, transmuted. No. Translated. Yeah, it can be. It all just comes down to energy. Like we're working with energy. Like energy is what was used to plant that idea in your head. Like, hey, Doritos and Coke. It's like that's
right?
your sister communicating with you. I believe the portals. You know, it's wide open. Whether you use something like this or you just connect. You know, for your own self.
And it was so healing for her to connect with her sister like that.
Yes, because we did. You know, she was very. I felt the loving energy from her.
Yeah.
And you know, then we were both okay.
Which is more connection on a soul level than your human relationship. You know, you're able to connect the real way.
Yeah.
I like that.
And another thing is, because I've had a lot of death in my life, when I'd go back to work, people would just were very awkward. They didn't know what to say. They would totally say the wrong stuff. And and then I treated it as an experiment, because I was like, this is too weird. And so what I realized is that people do say the wrong thing, and it's because they care. They don't know what to say, but a message to the people that are afraid to say the wrong thing, all you have to do is listen. You don't have to say anything. You just have to be there for the person and listen.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's profound.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks.
That's a huge share.
Thanks a ton for sharing this. This has been amazing, and I've learned a ton from it, and I understand a lot more about what this represents now, and seeing people that are participating in Day of the Dead makes so much more sense now. So I appreciate all that. We like to close out things. We do rabbit holes, and I've got some crazy ones. So I don't know if I should go today.
Well,
I went down a
quick
deep
rabbit
one
for today.
So Esperanza, what do you want? You have any rabbit holes? Something you're going down? It doesn't have to be related to this or spiritual. It can be anything. Whatever. What's really interesting that's just kind of off the cuff? Rabbit hole you've gone down that's fun.
You want time to think about it?
I'll go first.
I was just explain. The rabbit hole I've gone through is my favorite singer, Layla Downs.
Oh,
and
I love her.
You love her?
Yeah,
you know her?
Isn't she a Latina artist?
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard of
and
her.
I just totally I'm in there, and
So
my
let's
house,
check out-
everything is playing in my house.
Oh,
Would that be
beautiful.
considered a rabbit hole?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
What's
the
the
draw?
music like?
Oh, she is very soulful, very it's Day of the Dead music.
Okay.
I discovered her when I watched the movie Frida,
Mm-hmm.
and the movie Frida was very meaningful for me, because my sister was into Frida.
Call out to Frida.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about Frida. When I finally watched the movie, then I understood my sister.
Oh my goodness.
I recommend people watch the movie Frida.
Yeah, it's a great.
I got chills now. I thank you, Frida.
Mhm.
We love you,
Frida.
Frida.
Alethea, what rabbit holes you got for us?
Woo!
Pick out of the million
Oh
that
man.
may be running around that Aquarius.
Ooh,
So-
there's so many. I don't know. I've been on I guess a lot of just death and rebirth, which is good. You know, with this, it's just life being a constant death and rebirth and shedding and renewal, and it's
Tower moment.
it's
Tower
wild.
moment.
It's wild.
It's a wild ride.
I'm
But
gonna
there's
be
there's always a chance to renew yourself and be something better and a better
Love that.
version of yourself. So that's what I'm taking from it.
if you want
Alright.
to, whatever
If you want to.
if you want to,
Or not.
So you're saying there's a chance?
Yes.
So I'm gonna go off the deep end with my rabbit hole today.
Confirmation.
Yeah.
Confirmation.
So I've been stuck on the simulation. Like I'm kind of convinced we're in a simulation just based on like the double slit experiment. Like this makes more sense that it's like that it's computerized. Like we know our DNA, right? We know the 4 strands that make up our DNA. So the computer components that we can literally on microscopic 3D printers, we can print DNA strands. Like we can print usable parts for our bodies and shit. So if we know how to make our freaking body parts, like this is, and they break us down, our brains, computer recognition systems, like we're computers. These are avatars that are like, they're unwired. They don't like, we require sleep and we require like food and water. That's all we really have to have, and we can continue to thrive. We can live, we're off the grid, on the grid, whatever. It doesn't matter where we're at. Like housing, amazing. But it's like, if we're in a fucking simulation, that means all kinds of shit's hackable, right? We've got like, we know how to, like if we use breathing, we can hack our own systems. We can get, that's how DMT can be released endogenously through breathing techniques. And I was just listening to this guy named Eric Heckler, who's like this NSA or CIA, like he used to work for Raytheon, and he's like a whistleblower. This dude worked in the South Pole on this thing called the ice cube neutrino, and that wasn't the only thing he was working on. He was in the South Pole. He's stationed there as like a firefighter, and he had some other skill set. So as a result of this, the guy's got keys to everything, and he starts talking about what this thing is, like a telescope. But he goes, it also transmits information. It can also transmit. So not only does it take information in, it also transmits. And that's like all this crazy talk about like microwave technology, being able to like start fires and shit, like in Lahaina and stuff like that. Like that, he's saying that technology is absolutely alive and real, and it's for real. And he goes in, not only does it do shit like that, like they can put ideas, like when you have that internal dialogue that goes on, they can use this piece of equipment to put ideas that sound like your internal dialogue in your own head, but it's somebody else on a microphone controlling that shit. That's what he's saying. That this stuff is all. So it's like, okay, so if we're in a simulation, it sounds to me like, it sounds to me like people have like the computer system, like the computers inside of the simulation, inside of the computer program, are starting to hack the program. It's like, dude, we're figuring out shit that like before they had like, quantum physics, they didn't know, like when they're talking about entangling atoms and taking those atoms apart. And when you do no matter how far apart, quantum entangled atoms, no matter how far apart you put them, if you do one thing to the other, instantaneously the other one does something. It'll move, if someone's spinning this way, the other one's spinning that way, you switch the rotation, that one changes with it instantaneously, no matter how far apart it is. That there's some, like they used to think it was like some kind of communication that was happening that was like they couldn't, like dark matter or something like that they called it, but they couldn't explain the phenomenon of how one would do no matter how far apart they were. Now through this equipment, they can he's saying that it's a communication too, so it's like a direct laser communication that happens instantaneously no matter how far apart you are. Imagine if it's a simulation, maybe, I don't know how big it is. Maybe space is just like a big hard drive, right? That's like in the hard drive of the computer. Space it's continually expanding because it's made to fucking support itself. Like, look at us. Like we can totally like take care of ourselves independently of the system. Yeah. I don't know. So my rabbit hole is like, Jesus Christ.
It's interesting, and we definitely need to talk more about that, because I've heard a lot of other people talking about that.
Well, it's just like, that's the tip of the iceberg. That's just a couple of things this like thing can do, and it's like, and then it's the guy that like knows about it says, I don't want to limit what I think it can do by like what I think. He goes, it's unimaginable what this thing might be able to do. He goes, I have no idea what the limitations are.
This is what it can do. So let's make ourselves unhackable.
So
stay with our breath and our light.
So this is the interesting part. Sean, this is on Sean Ryan's podcast. If anybody cares, Sean Ryan asked him at the end. He says, "So how do we protect ourselves?" And the answer was, know yourself. Exactly. Know your internal dialogue. Pay attention to the internal dialogue that you have. So
and know what's not you.
Exactly.
Know when you're not, like, this doesn't sound like something I'd say.
And don't attach to it, any of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
remain unattached.
That's my rabbit hole.
Yeah.
You got any?
As Godfrey was here last week, he just kept reminding me, with each exhale, with each sigh out, in the process of that, I'm filling up each and every cell with light, maybe from the sun, or just with my own love, with my own loving awareness. So in that, all I am is that pure light of consciousness, and that's it. So all the other stuff is our creation. How do you want to create it? Do you want to create lasers and trying to, you know, subliminally hack everybody's brains, which that's been going on forever anyway in various forms, but, you know, just constantly coming back to when I want to start like fighting in traffic. I've just really been watching myself in that way because
moment by moment.
yeah, and I just said that the other day. I said I'm just literally taking it moment by moment at this point, because also everything is constantly shifting and changing around me, like more than ever. So that's exactly right. Just breath in the moment, breath in the moment. How can I choose peace in this moment? How can I choose the highest good for myself and all in this moment? And it's definitely not easy, you know, because I see how my lower brain gets triggered and I want to react to, like, you know, certain things, and I have to come back to that for myself. And I find more and more I'm just not reacting to it, but just allowing it, just allowing it to be whatever it is.
Well, everything that happens is
safely and peacefully.
Yeah, everything that happens, it just happens. You apply good or bad. Right? It's
Yeah.
it just happened. It just is until you decide if it's
Right.
good or it's bad. So it can just be. So yeah,
Letting
good.
it be.
I like it. I like it. So
Yeah.
Esperanza, why don't you close this thing out, ring the bell, and let's wrap this thing up. And thank you guys so much. Observing
Wow.
consciousness. Namaste.
We are Observing Consciousness. Thank you for tuning in. Alethea, DJ, Dana, and Esperanza is our special guest. We'll put on the web pages, observingconsciousness.com, and our Facebook page of Observing Consciousness, how to get in contact with Esperanza, and also how to get in contact with all of us. If you ever want a special reading, channeled message, some spiritual coaching from DJ, he is available. He is incredible. This is the main reason why we're all here and doing this. I do incredible energy, body work, all sorts of stuff. Alethea does incredible energetic body work as well, amongst other things. So come and find us, check us out, come down our rabbit holes. We love you. Awesome.